Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back for another edition of the Warmies here from our Sports Interaction studio in Marteloup in Calgary, ahead of this afternoon's Calgary Flames game against the Florida Panthers. The Flames coming off of a bit of a lopsided loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning 2 days ago, and we're glad to have you along with us here on this very early Friday afternoon. Not accustomed to a 2 p.m. weekday start, but I guess when American Thanksgiving gets thrown into the fold, things can get kind of haywire. So we'll see how today will go. I don't know if the Flames are going to be feeling very accustomed to this. The Panthers, of course, maybe more so in that headspace more frequently down in Sunrise. And they might need that sort of change. The Panthers might, because their start to the season has been maybe arguably as difficult relative to expectations as it has been up in Calgary. Once again, my name is Mike Gould. Thank you all for joining us here at the Sports Interaction studio, and we will kick things off on this Friday afternoon by taking a look at the lines as the Flames take on the Panthers. As you might expect, after their loss to Tampa Bay 2 nights ago, the Flames are not the favorites in this game. It is the Panthers at minus 185, the Flames at plus 154, the over-under set at 5.5, and the spread at 1.5. So you can see the Flames not getting a whole lot of slack from our friends over at Sports Interaction, although granted, when they have an 8-14-3 record through 25 games, I'm not sure if I would be expecting them to get a whole lot of that little extra intangible benefit from our friends over at SI. The Panthers on the season 12-10-1 with 25 points through 23 games. That's not a terrible record, but when you look at the Eastern Conference, there's just so much going on with 4 teams tied at 27 points. The Panthers, they are, as it stands, as we enter today's game, third last in the Eastern Conference. Only Toronto and Buffalo have worse records than the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions to start the 2025-26 season. And I think it might actually be worth starting off today by having a look at the Florida lineup. We'll get producer Michael to put that one up on screen, because so much has been made this season about the Flames, dressing a lineup that maybe isn't optimal. They've had a couple of injuries, what have you. The Panthers, to start this season, have been nothing short of decimated. Of course, they haven't had Tkachuk and Barkov at all this season, but this is not a lineup that, if you told me belongs to a 2-time back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, I wouldn't believe you. Anton Lundell, Evan Rodriguez, Sam Bennett, and Luke Cunnin are the centers for the Panthers, and the wingers. You got Brad Marchand at 37 years of age, who continues to turn back the clock. He's the leading scorer for this Panthers team. But then Mackie Samoskevich, Jesper Boqvist, both on the left side in the top 6. It's a bit of a mixed bag when you look at the Panthers up front. But you know what? They have proven that they are able to get out of jams like this. They have proven they're able to, reshape their identity, as they have done so numerous times over the years. And now here we are, entering the 24th game of the season for them and the 26th game of the season for the Flames. And the Flames will have an interesting situation of going up against a Stanley Cup champion team, but also being tasked with not underestimating them without certain guys in the lineup. So that'll be a real interesting test for Calgary. Let's take a look at the Panthers lineup on defense as well, because it is a little bit stronger than what you would see up front. A very good top 4 that we saw lead them to the Stanley Cup last season in Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, Seth Jones, and Nico Mikkola. And the third pairing, Jeff Petrie, a wily veteran who just played his 1,000th game the other night, along with the Latvian Uvis Balinskis. So lots of veteran savvy on that Panthers defensive group. We are under the expectation that Daniil Tarasov, the former Columbus Blue Jackets prospect, will get the start for the Panthers today. Tarasov is 2-3-1 with a .913 save percentage through 7 games this season with the Florida Panthers. And we weren't sure, and there are folks in the chat who are talking about it as we speak, we weren't sure entering today's game who would get the start for the Calgary Flames. And it turns out it looks like it will be Devin Cooley going between the pipes for Calgary against Florida today. Cooley has been excellent to start his Flames tenure, truly eradicating any questions that might have existed about the Flames potentially needing to upgrade their backup goaltending spot. Not at all through 8 games. 2-2-1 with a .930 save percentage is Devin Cooley, who has won back-to-back entering tonight's game, or today's game, I should say. Already chat in the chat, I should say, from our buddy Can Trader talking about how Sam Bennett is on the third line for this Florida Panthers team. I mean, he's actually been a lot better of late. Sam Bennett had 5 points in his first 18 games of the season this year. He's back up to about a half a point a game. He's been a little bit more on the ball of late. 11 points in 23 games this season for Sam Bennett. But when you're making $8 million a year, the expectation that comes with it is that you don't just perform in the playoffs. And for Sam Bennett's whole career, that's sort of been the whole thing. Bennett, for his career, is under a half a point a game in his career to date. 714 games played, 347 points. And in the playoffs, 107 games, 78 points, and 40 of those points are goals. So obviously, we've all seen this. Sam Bennett was in Calgary for a very long time. Similar splits between the playoffs and the regular season when he was here. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's just never translated into Bennett being a consistently productive guy over 82 game samples. And it's been the case again in Florida this year. But you can't really complain when you've won back-to-back Stanley Cups, as the Florida Panthers have. We'll take a look at the Calgary Flames lines, as it looks like, as Jack Rosa, our buddy, says, they'll be roughly the same. Of course, Sam Morton has gone down, and so that creates a fourth line going forward of Ryan Lomberg with Johnny Beecher and Adam Klapka. Top 3 lines have been pretty good for most of the season so far. It's been a matter of finding this chemistry, and what we've seen from this top line with Jonathan Huberdeau, Morgan Frost, and Matt Coronado over the last couple weeks has been substantial chemistry. They have really found a way to build off of each other, play off of each other super well, and we're going to see it again tonight or today. Second line and third line both staying the same with Kadri Farabee and Sharon Govich, and Backlund at Coleman and Connor Zary. You know, it's interesting looking at Devin Cooley, because there are already folks in the chat talking about his contract status. Cooley signed with the Flames a couple of summers ago as an unrestricted free agent from the San Jose Sharks. And now here we are, where he is in the second half of that contract. He's on a one-way part of that contract. And he's got these good numbers, albeit in a small sample size. And you sort of wonder, is this a guy who you want to bring back for a year or two? Or is this a guy who you're looking at and saying, okay, the number of teams out there that are looking for a goaltender, is this someone who we can dangle out there for value? It's a really interesting question, especially when you sort of consider before last season, where Devin Cooley was the guy, no bones about it, for the Calgary Wranglers. He had never played in more than 26 games or 27 games in a single professional season, or even dating back beyond that. During his time at the University of Denver, he was a platoon goalie all 3 years, pretty much, at best. In junior, he didn't play a whole lot. This is a guy who's never been the guy, really, at any level, until he got to Calgary, where he was sort of thrust into that spot with the Wranglers, and he performed extremely well to start. And now he's back in a backup spot in the NHL. It's not typically something that we see. We typically see guys who are stars at lower levels make it to the NHL, and then they find a role there. We don't typically see guys who are backups at every level go on to be a backup in the NHL. It's a really interesting case study of a goaltender who, yeah, before he arrived in the scene in Calgary, don't know if he was necessarily really on many teams' radar. And now here we are, where he's playing extremely well. He's been doing nothing but exceeding expectations since he arrived in the Flames organization. What do you do with this guy? What does the future hold for Devin Cooley? It's a really interesting question. And it's good to see him get another start, because Lord knows over the first 6 weeks of the season, Dustin Wolf was being just ridden hard and hard and hard, and probably not the best thing for him. We saw in the last game, the Flames were never really in that game, and it wasn't really their fault, at least the skaters' fault. You know, it was a game where, God bless him, Dustin Wolf let in 2 goals real quick, and they were fighting from being down the whole game. And they didn't really have a chance to prove that they could build on a 3-game winning streak, because they were kind of undercut from the start. And those games will happen. So today will be a really interesting test to see if the Flames can rebound, but also build upon what they were doing before that loss in Tampa Bay. So really interesting stuff on the ice for the Flames. The defense pairings we don't even have to put those up if you don't want to, Michael. They're going to be the same. It'll be Kevin Ball with Rasmus Andersson, Jan Kuznetsov with Mackenzie Weegar, and Joel Hanley with Braden Bahal. There we go. So that's what the Flames are looking like today. We'll tell you about a couple of props that we've pulled up over at Sports Interaction. Let's take a look at our old trusty standby, the shot props for the Calgary Flames in this game. And, we've said so much over the start of the season to date, on these shot props. Just a great standby is to look at Blake Coleman and Matt Coronato, because they are the Flames' two highest volume shooters. And in Coleman's case, I don't think he gets enough respect from the odds makers for being such a good high volume shooter. A couple of days ago, the Flames were in Tampa Bay, and that was a game that was really dictated by score effects. They lost that game, but they were, fighting from behind the whole time. And wouldn't you know it, in that game, Blake Coleman had 0 shots on goal, but Matt Coronato had 6. I'm going to say Blake Coleman, playing against a team that was one of his old rivals when he was in Tampa Bay. That -110 on the over 1.5 looks real nice to me. I would be all over that. And Jonathan Huberdeau is one that I would be looking at on the over as well. Huberdeau in the last game had a couple of shots. He's playing against Florida. That's one where I would be really prepared to hammer the over as well. But again, the Flames, it's hard to know what to predict, hard to know what to expect from them after a game in which they weren't really involved after the first couple minutes because they were so far behind. What are you going to do? Basically just playing out the string for the entire rest 40 minutes of the way. So definitely look at those shot props. Look at the whole Coleman and Huberdeau on the over, those -110s. Looking real strong. Go check out the rest of the stuff over at Sports Interaction, where every game is your game. Get in on the action with parlay boosts, live betting, and easy deposits and payouts. Bet now at sportsinteraction.com/FlamesNation. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. They're good folks over at Sports Interaction. They gave us a nice little helmet and a nice little jersey and a couple other nice little tidbits. And wouldn't you know it, there's the jersey, or pardon me, there's the helmet right there. We found a place for it in our little studio here in Marteloup, the Sports Interaction Studio. And we're so glad to have all of you with us on this Friday afternoon. It's already been a very newsy day for the Calgary Flames organization. And Michael, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can put up that screenshot in any second here, because the Calgary Flames earlier this morning finally announced what fans have been asking them to announce to a certain extent for quite some time. 2-year extension for Flames general manager Craig Conroy. Along with that, they extended President of Hockey Operations Don Maloney, Assistant General Managers Dave Nonis, and Brad Pascal, both to 2-year contracts. Everybody gets 2 years. And, I think it's a good thing to see Craig Conroy get this extension. They sort of put him out with a little media availability shortly thereafter that they put on their official social media. BBJ 403 is saying, why only 2 years for Connie? Quite frankly, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a very valid question. The thing is, though, I mean, we've been talking on Warmies and on Afterburner and on Barn Burner for the last 2-3 weeks, just at how strange the messaging has been from the Flames for basically this whole saga. It's just a sort of compounding errors in certain ways that they have messaged this. All starting with the game where Don Maloney comes out and gives that bizarre media availability with Brendan Parker. And then they sort of double down on it with a two-part interview with Eric Francis. And then all the stuff comes out about how, they don't have a contract in place for Craig Conroy. And now they do have a contract in place for Craig Conroy. And now the Flames today announcing, well, we had these done all along. These were all in the can. And we were just sort of trying to figure out the right time to release it, to announce it, which to me is just very, very strange. And the thing to me is, it's not like why? What was the reasoning for holding on to this announcement? Obviously, with the start they had, I can understand, not wanting to announce a contract if you have it in place after a 2-9 start. But the way that the Flames put it in their announcement today is that these were done in the offseason. And they announced a contract in the offseason to Ryan Huska. They announced an extension for Huska. And obviously, after the Flames got off to their brutal start, that contract was put extremely under the microscope. But the exact wording out of this announcement today, each of the 2-year extensions were signed prior to the start of the 2025-26 season and will result in all senior hockey leadership of the Calgary Flames being under contract through the 2027-28 season. So essentially, what they're trying to say is that, no, there wasn't really any reason for fans to be concerned about any of this. And the interview that Maloney did with Francis, I guess, where he just said they didn't want to comment on it, I guess they just were waiting. They were just sitting on it. To me, that doesn't make any sense. I don't buy any of what the Flames are putting out about these contracts. I think there is something really, really that smells. Because to me, why wouldn't, if they were done in the offseason, why wouldn't you have announced these with the Huska deal? Why wouldn't you just announce them all at the same time? What impetus was there? If you came into this season expecting to contend and being happy about the way that last season ended, which by all accounts they were right there in the playoff mix, why didn't you extend these guys, or why didn't you announce that you had extended these guys before the season if that were really the case? I don't buy it. I think that there's a possibility that maybe some of these guys had extensions. I don't doubt that maybe Maloney and Nonis and maybe even Brad Pascal had extensions, but all of the back and forth with Craig Conroy over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, talking about how, boy, it's strange this guy doesn't have a contract. Either the Flames are really bad at PR because there was a really good opportunity there to, announce the Conroy extension by itself amidst all of this, if they truly had it ready and in the can, or they're not being completely forthright. And there was something that happened out of the last few days where there was all this upheaval among the fan base where something changed behind the scenes and now they got it done. To me, the notion that they've been sitting on this for 2 months makes absolutely no sense, and I don't buy it for a second. And quite frankly, that interview that Conroy did with that guy on Flames TV, whose name I forget, but the interview that they put on social media, to me was strange. And I watched the whole thing a couple of times, and some of the faces that Craig is making in that interview are just the face of a guy who's trying to keep the official story straight. He's just sort of saying, yeah, let me just go back through this. We re-signed Huska, and then we waited, and I had a contract this whole time, but we didn't want to tell anybody about it. And then the president had the interviews instead of me, even though I love talking to the media, and he didn't want to answer any questions about why I didn't have a contract. And now I'm making my first appearance in the media for 2 months to announce that I finally have a contract. That's the story, right? That doesn't ring any bells to me at all, just quite frankly. So I don't know. Either the Flames are bad at PR or they're lying. Those are the only two outcomes that I can truly glean from this that make any sense to me, because otherwise it just is something from a crazy land. But I don't know. I truly don't know. And it is going to overshadow today's game for a lot of people because of the way that they have handled this. The Flames are playing in Florida today. It is a game that will be surely something to watch on television on a Friday afternoon in Calgary, where most people don't get days off for American Thanksgiving and will be at the office. I would imagine that a lot of folks are probably working instead of watching this show. But there are a lot of folks who are going to be at work talking about the absolute mess that has surrounded all the stuff with Craig Conroy and Tom Maloney and Brad Pascal and Dave Nonis. And the other thing that is strange is, to me, the fan sentiment. You stood to gain a ton of goodwill from everybody if you announced Craig and gave Craig his moment in the sun. And if the notion is they wanted to stagger out these media blitzes where you extend Ryan Huska, you give him his time in the sun, and then you want to maybe give Craig his own, why are you announcing Craig at the same time as Maloney, as Pascal, and as Nonis? That, to me, is another PR blunder of absolutely shooting yourself in the foot Why would you do that? I don't understand it. It is really something to watch, because to me, it just is just another indicator of how the Flames are not in touch with what their fan base is really looking for from them. And we'll see what comes out of today's game as a result of that. So lots of folks having their takes being seen and heard in the chat. We'd encourage you to leave some super chats. There were a lot of super chats from yesterday in that marathon 12-hour session that the boys did over, I think, at like Rhett Warner's house. That was fantastic. Just get your thoughts and comments in the chat as we wait for the start of today's afternoon game between the Flames and the Panthers. The biggest thing to me, though, is like, yeah, it is so weird. Everything that's been coming out the last 2 months with Craig not doing any media. We haven't seen Craig doing anything in the media. Now he's on a concerted blitz today. He was on 960. He'll be on the broadcast of today's game. That to me does not scream, oh, this guy has been business as usual. The contract was done ages ago, and we've just been waiting for the right time to get it out there. That's not Craig Conroy. That to me, it just doesn't add up. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Can Trader Inc. again making a good point. The PR guy before is AGM now. You're right. They promoted Peter Hanlon in the offseason to be another AGM for the Flames. And yeah, I think now that this is all done, I think now that Craig and Maloney and everybody else has a contract, they really ought to go through their PR systems and what they've got brewing behind the scenes, how they manage their messaging, because I think the last 4 weeks have been a masterclass in how to let mistakes compound on one another into the point where you have an absolute mess on your hands. I was in a doctor's appointment a couple of days ago with somebody who doesn't know anything really. I mean, doesn't really pay attention to hockey. Doesn't know a whole lot about hockey. Sort of just follows it like the same way that you would like glancing at the front page of the newspaper. Really smart person, but just isn't really a hockey fan at all. We've known each other for years and we haven't talked about hockey. And out of the blue, it was like, have you heard what's going on with Don Maloney and all this stuff going around over on the Flames? They said this to me. And I was like, yeah, I've heard. I didn't think you would have heard, but that's the sort of way that this stuff gets out of control. And the Flames, I mean, Jux JC saying, I think they're chasing public opinion rather than getting ahead of it. Yeah, that's the needle. That is the needle on top of the haystack, isn't it? That is just boom, right on it. It's, again, there is a game today. The Calgary Flames playing the Florida Panthers. I mean, I don't expect the Flames to be down 4-0 after the first, like they were against Tampa Bay 2 days ago. But we were sort of saying all throughout the middle of November here, where the Flames were starting to, look a little bit better, like they were about to turn it around. This was always going to be a definitional stretch for them, and a stretch where they were going to be put to the test after, a bit of a hodgepodge of opponents in the middle of the month. Now they're going up against Tampa, Florida, Carolina, all in succession, and this is going to tell us a lot about them. And the first game against Tampa, all it really told us was they're not as good as Tampa Bay. And so Florida, again, has a lot of warts. They're not like Tampa Bay, which is in first place in the Atlantic Division right now. They have had a lot of struggles. If the Flames come out today and look like the Flames that we've come to expect against the Florida Panthers this season, it might have a lot of sway on how they choose to move forward in the immediate future. Lots of NHL games on the docket today. In fact, there are already 2 that are in the books. The Tampa Bay Lightning have already defeated the Detroit Red Wings by a 6-3 score, and the Rangers beating Boston by 6-2 final. Milk Tobo 7418 saying likely health issues at play for the delay/response. This is a $2 super chat. Quite frankly, Milk Tobo, I don't know what you mean by that. Health issues for who? For Conroy? Like for the Flames, for management, like announcing these contracts? Or are we talking about like the Flames' performance against Tampa Bay 2 days ago? I'm not sure. Oh, for Conroy, I haven't heard anything about Conroy being in ill health, so I don't really know what that's about. But I think the more rational explanation just boils down to a difference in opinion on the direction of the team. And also not quite realizing how much fan sentiment is tied to Conroy being a GM and a management figure who they trust. I don't know if they realized the extent to which the Flames have, lost a decent amount of goodwill over the last 4 years. And Conroy is a guy who, fans have trusted pretty consistently amongst all that. And the notion that Conroy no longer maybe speaks for the organization as thoroughly as people have come to expect, and contrasted with what we heard from Maloney, I think a lot of people were concerned about that. And I think the Flames heard about it. And my belief is that it would make sense if the Flames, seeing the blowback they've gotten, maybe went back to Craig and said, okay, we want to get this done. What do we have to do? That would make a lot more sense to me than the idea, which just feels more half-baked every time I say it, that they had this done before the season and they were waiting until now to announce it. Again, I just don't buy it. I really don't. But I don't know. I'm not in the room. I'm not in the executive suite. To me, though, it just doesn't seem like they're being completely forthright. But that's again, it's not like they have to lie about the contracts. I just like it's entirely possible that maybe they had some sort of understanding about where they wanted to be. But to me, I get they can say it. I just don't believe it. Quite frankly, I just don't. And I don't know. Maybe someone is dealing with a matter that caused a delay in the announcement, but I don't know. That we haven't heard anything about that. So maybe it'll come out at some point in the future. In any event, the Flames and the Florida Panthers. Any other chats, any other comments that folks want to put out there? Because there's a lot going on in the NHL today. There's a lot of games on the docket. Of course, Flames and Panthers coming up next. Already in progress, Colorado and Minnesota. They're scoreless midway through the first period. New Jersey and Buffalo, Philadelphia and the Islanders, Ottawa, St. Louis, Montreal, Vegas, LA, Anaheim, Vancouver, San Jose. All those games are going live at the same time as the Flames game, 2 p.m. Eastern today. 2 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then Toronto, Washington, Winnipeg, Carolina, both going live at 3 Mountain and 5 Eastern. So, there's lots of early games today. There's lots to get through. Obviously, it's a big football weekend down in the States. But hey, up here, we're all on the Flames. Isn't that right? So lots of stuff happening. Jack Rosa making a very good point. Our prayers to Clayton Keller and his family. Clayton's dad, Brian, passed away a couple days ago unexpectedly in his sleep. Spoken to Clayton a few times during his time in Arizona. Really, really nice guy. Hoping for all the best because I know his father way too young. Really, really sad stuff there. And a really good family, sort of from the St. Louis region, and doing some great things Clayton has in the NHL and had a great upbringing. So just a terrible, terrible thing happening there. Before we head out, Mr. Watts, 69, Mike Gould, what's your opinion on Devin Cooley so far? Kind of already said it, but I think he's done a very good job of keeping things quiet in his crease. He has not been a flopper. He hasn't been a blocker. He hasn't. He's been relatively athletic. I've liked that. He hasn't let out a lot of rebounds. It's a very small sample. And last year, we saw a great hot start. He got a little hurt midway through the year. He was sort of trying to play through it, as far as we know, and the numbers went way down. So I think big thing for Cooley this year is just maintaining it. And I think, with a lighter workload, being able to be the backup behind Dustin Wool, I think he'll have a really good chance to be able to succeed over the whole 82 games, however many of them he does play. The interesting thing to me is if he does get a good run of games here, if he becomes a player who other teams are interested in trading for, because goalies are few and far between. So that'll be something worth watching for sure as the season keeps going. That's it. We're gonna leave it here. Flames, Panthers, going live in just a matter of minutes at 2 p.m. Mountain Time on a Friday. A little bit of a weird start time, but we appreciate y'all joining us on what has already been a very big day for hockey fans here in Calgary. The Flames having extended Craig Conroy, Don Maloney, Brad Pascal, and Dave Nonis as their executive team through 2028. They will now try to get back in their winning ways after a beatdown in Tampa Bay 2 nights ago. My name is Mike Gould. We want to thank our producer, Michael, out east, as well as our friends over at Sports Interaction. We hope you're all warm now because you've been watching the Warmies.
Hey, buddies. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.